In ESO, you can occasionally get your hands on treasure maps upon looting mobs and opening chests or containers, among other things. I can see how, to the average unsuspecting player, these maps look like a pain in the ass. You open one up and the visual that greets you looks only marginally better than the drawing your 4-year-old cousin drew for you the other day, and even if you use add-ons or consult an online resource to help you locate the treasure location, you may think to yourself, upon digging up a treasure chest and receiving a worthless piece of gear, man, that was really not worth it. I'm just gonna list my maps up for 77 gold on the trader and get rid of them. Hold on there, partner. I wouldn't do that if I were you. So I've talked about this notion in a couple of my videos that I've made in the past, but given how freaking easy it is for me to get my hands on some severely underpriced maps, I figured that the message hasn't really reached enough people. On my platform anyways, this has kind of been a gold making method that has been slept on, so I'm sorry to those of you that had previously been taking advantage of this predicament. Chests that are associated with treasure maps for a base game and a handful of DLC zones have a chance to drop leads for ancestral motifs. For the longest time, the base game ancestral motifs, that's Ancestral High Elf, Orc, and Nord, hadn't really sold for all that much because of how cracked their supply was, and because a lot of players had already acquired these motifs during their initial release oh so long ago. I've started to notice a peak in the prices for these base game ancestral motifs on PCNA in recent times though, so definitely keep an eye on that. Don't be fooled by your add-on data. Check out what other people are listing their motifs for. The ancestral motifs that drop from treasure map chests for the following DLC zones have always been worth a lot. On my platform, however, I'm noticing not only a drastic increase in the prices of these items, but an imbalance in the prices of the maps that can yield them. I'll return to this thought in a second. The main takeaway is that if you have one of these treasure maps, especially one for a DLC zone, I highly encourage you to actually go ahead and dig the treasure map chest up to try your luck at getting one of these incredibly valuable motifs. If you have a successful dig, you also have a chance at receiving additional treasures, such as valuable style materials or pieces of gear. And even if you get through the entirety of this video and still think, Artea, I don't give a fuck that I could potentially get an epic and valuable motif, I'm not gonna do that treasure map, nothing you say can change my mind, then okay, fair enough, I'm not your mom, do whatever you want. To be fair, there are a lot of players out there that get their hands on a DLC map but don't own the actual DLC itself, or maybe they don't have access to the Antiquity system because it is, at the time of recording, still locked behind a paywall, so they'd have no choice but to get rid of their map. But you probably don't want to be a two-head and underprice your map, right? Thanks to the nerds in my Discord server who've all been very kind and resourceful with their sharing of knowledge, we've been able to come to the conclusion that the drop rate for ancestral motif leads is roughly 1 out of 3. For approximately every 3 treasure map chests that you open, you'll receive 1 motif lead. I feel a little silly saying this, but in case it's not clear, it's worth mentioning that you aren't guaranteed 1 lead for every 3 chests. This is just an approximate drop rate attained from hundreds of test cases. Sometimes I'll get 3 leads back to back, and sometimes it'll feel like I've opened over 10 chests without a single lead. It do be like that. Don't mistakenly think that the devs have decreased drop chances. It's also worth mentioning that leads of any sort do not drop on cooldown, thus leads for ancestral motifs are no different. You don't need to wait for a certain amount of time to pass before attempting another treasure map chest. I've gotten motif leads back to back all the time, and as I've previously suggested, I also one time opened 20 treasure map chests without receiving a singular motif lead. RNGesus is not kind to me sometimes. Let's refer back to that roughly 33% drop chance. When it comes to pricing your treasure maps for DLC zones that yield valuable ancestral motifs especially, I'd highly recommend considering this drop chance. I think it's fair to suggest that your map should be worth roughly 1/3 of what the average price is for the kind of ancestral motif that can drop from said map. Or perhaps only slightly lower to further tempt those players that enjoy the gamble. Be mindful of the fact that sometimes there's a noticeable range in prices, with styles like chests and legs being typically worth considerably more than, say, maces and swords. A similar notion is observed when we take a look at the prices of raw versus refined materials. Whether you choose to refine your stacks of raw ancestor silk for materials to sell, or sell the raw materials themselves, you'll get roughly the same amount of gold. The prices for the raw mats and the refined mats make sense. Otherwise, we'd all just be be buying up raw mats at market price to refine and make gold. At the moment, the cheapest Ancestral Excavating and Ancestral Reach motifs go for around 60k on my platform, with the more expensive variants being worth upwards of 300 to 400k. There is no reason why I should be finding Blackwood and Western Skyrim maps for 10k each. Or less. I mean, yeah, I've really been enjoying making gold from buying up these ridiculously cheap and easy to get maps to then dig up for ancestral motifs to sell for gigastonks, but I just had to say something. Now, I get it. We all make oopsie doopsies sometimes, it's understandable. I've mistakenly priced items before in the past myself. But a more sinister plot that I've seen unfold more often than I'd like is the following. You know those zone chat willing to buy spammers, right? My mortal enemies? Well, another one of their coy little scams involves asking players in zone chat to send them their maps, and that they'll pay for them via the COD system in the game. They offer to pay a small fee, something like 1k per map. These 5 heads hope to receive mails with valuable maps in them, and if they don't, they merely return the mail, and don't pay for any of the maps, of course. I've seen other iterations of this scam as well, where people will just outright advertise in zone chat that they're willing to buy maps for the DLC zones that can drop ancestral motifs for something like 500 gold apiece. What's worse is that they tend to do this in starter zones, filled with players that truly wouldn't know any better, and really need the gold. So that's about it for this video. It may be worthwhile to check up on guild traders or TTC from time to time in case there are any super cheap maps for valuable zones available for purchase. And of course, if you'd like to sell your map yourself, I hope you have a better idea of what you should sell it for. From what we've observed in the recent past from the Deadlands treasure maps, buyers are still willing to buy treasure maps when they are roughly 1/3 of the value of the average motif that you can get from them. And please, do not get scammed. Thank you guys for watching this video. For more ESO content, feel free to check out my other videos on this channel or join my Discord server. I'd like to give a special shout out to my YouTube members for backing me financially. It really helps me out a lot. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers!